I never thought I would hear those words from my own grandson. But there he stood, his young face hard with defiance, his voice trembling not from fear, but from the cruel certainty that comes when someone has been carefully coached. "You're just a burden now, Grandpa. We don't need you here anymore." The sentence hit me like a fist to the chest. I froze in my chair, the fork heavy in my hand, as if the simple act of lifting it had suddenly become impossible. For a moment, all I could hear was the ringing in my ears, the blood rushing like sirens. I had once chased down the streets of this very town when I was a younger man in uniform. But this wasn't the chaos of a crime scene. This was my own kitchen, my son's house, my family's dinner table. And it was my 15-year-old grandson who had just condemned me with words sharper than any knife. I am Frank Miller, 66 years old, a retired police officer who spent more than 4 decades serving this city. I thought I had seen the worst humanity could offer. But nothing prepared me for what was about to unfold in my own home. What happened next changed everything. If you've ever felt the sting of family betrayal, you'll understand why I had to fight back. The kitchen was quiet after he spoke. My son Robert kept his eyes on his plate, pretending to cut into the roast chicken as if the tension hadn't just cracked the air like a gunshot. My daughter-in-law, Megan, sat beside him, her lips curled into a faint smile she didn't bother to hide. And my grandson Jason, God help me, looked straight into my eyes with a coldness I had never seen in him before. "You heard me," he said, his voice firmer this time. "You're just in the way." It was like the air itself turned heavy. My hand shook as I set the fork down, the clatter echoing too loud in the silence. 1,000 memories collided in my mind in that instant. Jason, at 6 years old, laughing as I taught him how to ride his bike in the cul-de-sac. His little hands gripping the handlebars, his trust in me, absolute. Jason at 10 curled up beside me on the porch swing as I told him about the old days on the force, his eyes wide with admiration. Jason at 12 running into my arms after his first baseball game, shouting, "Did you see that, Grandpa? I hit it just like you taught me." And now, Jason at 15 looking at me as if I were nothing but dead weight dragging his young life down. I wanted to speak. I wanted to shout, to demand how he could say such a thing. But my throat closed. The words stuck like shards of glass. Instead, Megan broke the silence. "He's just telling the truth, Frank," she said smoothly, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "It's not fair to put so much pressure on a young man. He needs his space, and frankly, you sitting around here all day isn't helping anyone." I turned my eyes toward her, and for a moment, I saw it, the satisfaction gleaming in her expression. She had waited for this. She had coached him, rehearsed the lines, planted the poison, and he had repeated it perfectly. The roast chicken cooled on my plate. The smell of garlic and rosemary, usually comforting, turned bitter in my nose. My son shifted uncomfortably, but still said nothing. Robert, my only child, the boy I had raised alone after his mother died, sat silent while his wife dismantled everything we once were as a family. "Jason?" I managed finally, my voice quieter than I intended. "Why would you say that to me? After everything—" But he only shrugged. A teenager's shrug, casual and dismissive, as if I were nothing more than an old neighbor asking for a favor. Megan's hand slid across the table, patting his arm. "Don't feel guilty, sweetheart," she murmured. "Sometimes the truth is hard, but it needs to be said." Truth. That word stabbed deeper than the insult itself. I leaned back in my chair, the wood creaking under my weight. My body felt older than 66, heavier than all my years on the force combined. I had been shot at, chased down dark alleys, pulled men twice my size into the back of squad cars, but I had never felt this defeated. I studied Jason's face. His jawline was starting to sharpen, the boy slowly becoming a man. But in his eyes I saw Megan's shadow. Not the curiosity of youth, not the warmth of family, but the cold echo of her contempt. "You really believe that I asked barely more than a whisper?" Jason looked at me, hesitated just a fraction of a second, and then nodded. It was the nod that shattered me. The clatter of silverware filled the silence. As Megan resumed eating, smugness painted across her face. Robert reached for his glass of water, his hand trembling slightly. I wanted him to speak up, to defend me, to defend his father. But he didn't. He just drank his Adam's apple, bobbing nervously. And in that silence, I realized something. This wasn't just a dinner table argument. This was war. It wasn't loud, not yet. No shouting, no slammed doors. But I had lived long enough, worked long enough, to recognize the battlefield when I saw it. Megan had drawn the line. She had turned my grandson into her weapon, and Robert's silence was his surrender. I sat there, a retired cop, a widower, a father, a grandfather, and in their eyes, a burden. But deep inside, under the ache, under the humiliation, something stirred. The same fire that had carried me through midnight stakeouts, through dangerous arrests, through years of surviving when the odds said I shouldn't. Something told me this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As I sat in that quiet kitchen staring at the half-eaten meal that had suddenly turned to ashes in my mouth, memories began to wash over me. They weren't just flashes of the past. They were anchors pulling me back to the man I had once been, the man I still was, deep inside, whether my family wanted to admit it or not. I joined the police force in 1979, just a skinny 20-year-old kid with more stubbornness than sense. My father had been a machinist, my mother a homemaker, and both had drilled into me one simple truth: you protect what you love, and you stand up when no one else will. The academy was brutal. I still remember those winter mornings running drills on black ice, the cold cutting into my lungs like knives. I remember the sting of pepper spray during training, the hours of shooting practice until my shoulders ached. But when I pinned that badge to my chest for the first time, I knew it wasn't just a job, it was a promise. For 36 years, I kept that promise. I walked the streets when others hid indoors. I broke up bar fights, pulled kids out of burning houses, and comforted crying mothers when I had no words left except, "I'm sorry, ma'am." I missed birthdays, anniversaries, Sunday dinners. My late wife, Margaret, carried the weight of our home, so I could carry the weight of everyone else's. She never complained, not once. She'd kiss me on the cheek as I walked out the door, whispering, "Come home safe, Frank." That's all I ask. But one night she didn't wake up. Heart failure in her sleep. She was 59. I held her hand until the paramedics arrived, and even after I couldn't let go, Robert was already a grown man by then, but it broke him too. For a while we leaned on each other. I thought that bond would never be broken. After Margaret's death, I poured myself into my grandson. Jason was just a toddler, then a bundle of energy with Margaret's same brown eyes. The first time he reached his little arms out to me and said, "Papa," my heart felt alive again. I bought him his first baseball glove. I built a treehouse in Robert's backyard, hammering nails late into the night while Jason slept. When he scraped his knee, I was the one who patched him up, whispering the same words I had used on countless victims in uniform. "You're safe now. I've got you." All the money I had, my pension, my savings, I used it for family. I paid for Jason's school trips, covered bills when Robert and Megan struggled, bought new tires when their car nearly gave out. I didn't think twice. A father, a grandfather, that's what you do. Or at least, that's what I thought. I wasn't perfect. God knows I had my temper. Too many years of shouting over sirens left me with a voice that carried more like thunder than a gentle breeze. Sometimes I'd slam my fist on the table when Jason ignored his homework, or when Robert came home late without calling. But my anger never came from hate. It came from fear. Fear that they would grow up soft in a world that demanded strength. Megan never understood that. From the first day Robert brought her home all polished nails and city perfume, I saw the way she looked at me, like I was some relic from another time. Too blunt, too rough, too old-fashioned. I tried. Lord, I tried. I welcomed her into my home. I complimented her cooking. I even paid for their honeymoon in Florida when Robert's paycheck couldn't stretch far enough. But nothing I did was enough to soften that look in her eyes. That look that said, "You don't belong here. You're in the way." Still, Jason was my anchor. When he was 10, I took him fishing by the lake where Margaret and I used to sit on summer evenings. The boy caught nothing but weeds that day, but the smile on his face when he reeled in that mess of green muck could have lit up the whole county. "Did I do good, Grandpa?" he asked, holding up the dripping line. "You did perfect, kiddo," I told him, ruffling his hair. "It's not about the catch. It's about the time spent together." That was the kind of lesson my badge never taught me, but Margaret had. She used to say family time is the only investment that always pays back. So I gave him all the time I had left. I showed him how to throw a baseball, how to check the oil in a car, how to shake a man's hand firm enough that he'd respect you. Jason soaked it all in, eyes shining, head nodding. For years, he called me his hero. But somewhere along the line, things changed. I noticed it first in little ways. Jason stopped asking me to pick him up from school. He rolled his eyes at my stories from the force. He sat closer to his mother than to me at the dinner table. And Megan, she was always there, whispering, correcting, reshaping. "He doesn't need your old-fashioned lessons," she'd say. "You're spoiling him with all those gifts. Maybe you should let Robert and me handle things. You've done enough." At the time, I brushed it off. Families argue, I told myself. Generations clash. It was normal. But deep down, I could feel the ground shifting. Now, sitting there in that kitchen, Jason's cruel words hanging in the air, I realized just how far we had drifted. A burden. That's what I had become. At least in their eyes. But in my heart, I knew the truth. I had given too much sacrifice, too much to let that be the final word on my life. I wasn't just a burden. I was Frank Miller. Former officer, father, grandfather. A man who had stood his ground through storms far worse than this. And if Megan thought she could erase me from my grandson's heart with a few poisonous whispers, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. Because this wasn't over, not by a long shot. I needed to remind myself of that, especially on nights when sleep refused to come, and the silence of the house pressed down on me. In those dark hours, I held on to the memories, the golden years with Jason the time before. Megan's whispers had turned him against me. Those were the days that gave me strength, the proof that the boy I loved was still in there somewhere. I remember when Jason was 5, a summer evening sticky with the smell of barbecue smoke and freshly cut grass. The neighborhood kids were playing tag in the yard, squealing and running barefoot, and Jason came charging up to me with his toy police badge pinned crookedly to his little t-shirt. "Look, Grandpa," he shouted, chest puffed out. "I'm just like you." I laughed so hard my ribs ached. I knelt down and straightened the badge, then tapped it with my finger. "You've got to wear it with pride, kiddo. A badge is a promise." He didn't know what that meant yet, but his eyes lit up like I just handed him the keys to the whole world. That night when the fireflies came out and the grill smoke drifted away, Jason sat on my lap and begged for another story from my patrol days. I told him about the time I chased a shoplifter through 3 alleys and ended up with a stray cat clinging to my leg. He laughed until he hiccuped, and Margaret, God rest her soul, used to say there was no sweeter sound than that boy's laughter. The bond grew deeper with each passing year. When Jason was 7, he wanted a baseball glove. Not the cheap plastic kind, but the real leather one like the pros used. Robert couldn't afford it at the time, so I took on a few extra security shifts at the high school football games. A week later, I surprised Jason with that glove. He wore it to bed for 3 nights straight. "Someday you'll teach me how to throw like a real cop," he said. I grinned. "A real cop? We're talking baseball, not handcuffs." But he shook his head. "No, Grandpa. I want to be like you. Brave. Brave." He used that word a lot back then. Brave when I killed a spider in his room. Brave when I fixed the leaky roof in the rain. Brave when I drove him through a snowstorm so he wouldn't miss school. He saw a hero where I only saw a tired old man trying his best. Jason was 10 when I taught him to ride a bike. I'll never forget the way his little knees wobbled, the terror in his voice as I let go of the seat. "Don't let go, Grandpa. I've got you, I promised." And when he finally pedaled away on his own, His laughter rang down the street like music. Later, when he crashed into the neighbor's hedge, I carried him home with scratches on his arms and tears in his eyes. But even as I cleaned the cuts, he whispered, "That was the best day ever." And it was, for both of us. Even Megan couldn't deny how close we were back then. Sometimes when she was too busy with work, she'd leave Jason with me for the whole weekend. We'd fish at Lake Mason, our lines tangled more often than not, but Jason didn't care. He'd sit on the dock with his legs dangling, munching peanut butter sandwiches and say, "Grandpa, this is better than TV." Other times, we'd take the old pickup truck, my trusty Ford from the 90s, and drive out past the fields, windows down, country radio humming. Jason would lean out, hair whipping in the wind, pretending he was flying. "Faster, Grandpa, faster." And I'd laugh, knowing full well the truck could barely hit 60 anymore. Those were the days that made all the sacrifices worth it. But the memory that clings to me most came when Jason turned 12. It was a chilly autumn evening, the trees burning orange and red, when he asked me to come to his school's Hero Day. Every kid was supposed to bring someone they looked up to. The gym was full of firefighters, doctors, even a lawyer or two. I walked in wearing my old uniform, polished badge shoes, shined hat tucked under my arm. I felt out of place, an old man among professionals half my age. Then Jason stood up in front of everyone, clutching the microphone with both hands. "My hero," he said, proudly, voice cracking just a little as my grandpa. "He used to be a police officer, and he's the bravest man I know. He taught me that family always comes first." I don't think I've ever been more proud or more humbled in my life. Teachers clapped, parents smiled, and Jason beamed at me like I was the president himself. Afterward, he wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "Don't ever leave me, Grandpa." I promised him I wouldn't. Those golden years weren't just memories. They were proof. Proof that beneath the coldness I saw in his eyes at the dinner table now, there had once been love. Deep, unshakable love. That's what I hold on to when Megan tries to drive a wedge between us. That's what keeps me from walking away for good. Because I know the boy who once wore a crooked toy badge and called me his hero is still in there somewhere. Maybe buried under teenage pride. Maybe poisoned by his mother's whispers. But not gone. Not completely. As I sat alone that night, staring out the window at the street lamp glowing over the quiet cul-de-sac, I whispered to myself, "He's still my grandson, and I'm still his grandpa. No one can erase that." I clenched my fist, feeling the old strength still there, the grit that had carried me through shootouts and dark alleys. This family might think I was just a burden, but I knew better, because the story wasn't finished. Not by a long shot, but what I didn't realize then was just how steep the downhill road would be. What began as small cracks in our family life soon widened into fractures, and those fractures into gaping chasms I could no longer ignore. It started subtly, little barbs, small dismissals that I tried to brush off. One Saturday afternoon, I was sitting on the porch, oiling my old service revolver, not to use, just to keep the memory of my years intact. Jason wandered out, phone in hand, earbuds dangling. "Grandpa?" He sighed, rolling his eyes. "Do you really have to keep that old thing around? Nobody cares about your cop stories anymore." His words stung more than he knew. I managed a smile, forced, and replied, "It's part of who I am, son. Someday you'll understand." But inside, something twisted. Once he had begged me for those stories. Now they were just old things. Megan appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. "He's right, Frank. You lived too much in the past. Let the boy enjoy his own life." And just like that, the first stone was cast. Soon the tension seeped into money matters. One evening, Robert came into my room with a tight smile. "Dad, Megan and I were thinking, maybe we should help manage your pension, just to make sure it lasts." I frowned. I've been managing my finances for decades. Why now? He hesitated, eyes darting to the floor. "It's just, we don't want you to make any mistakes. Things are expensive these days." Before I could answer, Megan stepped in smoothly, her voice honeyed but sharp. "It's not about control, Frank. It's about responsibility. We wouldn't want Jason to suffer if something happened to your funds. The implication was clear. I wasn't capable. I was a liability. I refused politely but firmly. Yet that night I caught Jason whispering to his mother in the kitchen. Is Grandpa broke? Did he mess up his money? And Megan's answer just loud enough for me to hear, exactly, sweetheart. That's why we have to protect him from himself. It wasn't just money or respect. It was love slowly eroded like waves carving away at stone. Jason stopped joining me for our Saturday fishing trips. Too busy, he'd mumble, eyes glued to his phone. When I pressed, he snapped I'd rather hang out with friends than sit in silence with an old man. That cut deeper than any insult. Silence. To me, those trips had been sacred. The gentle splash of water, the hum of crickets, the lessons shared between castes. That was where bonds were forged. But Megan poisoned even that. One evening, she told Robert loud enough for me to overhear, "It's not healthy for Jason to spend so much time with his grandfather. He needs to grow, not cling to outdated habits." And Robert, my own son, simply nodded. The walls of this house, once filled with laughter, began to echo with indifference. The humiliation became public. On Jason's birthday, Megan organized a big dinner at a fancy restaurant. I wasn't invited. I found out only because a neighbor showed me photos online, Jason grinning with his friends blowing out candles, Megan and Robert standing proudly at his side. No chair for me. No mention, no thanks. When I asked Robert later, he stammered, "We thought it might be too much for you, Dad." Long night, lots of noise. Too much for me. I repeated, my voice trembling. I changed your diapers. I held your hand when you had night terrors. And now you think a birthday party is too much? He lowered his eyes. Megan smirked in the background, and Jason wouldn't even look at me. That night I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the empty chair across from me. Margaret's chair? I whispered into the silence. They're erasing me, Maggie. Little by little. The final straw came at dinner one Sunday. We were halfway through a roast my contribution paid for with my pension when Jason suddenly pushed his plate aside and said flatly, "Grandpa, why don't you just move out? You're slowing us down." The fork slipped from my hand. The room went silent. I stared at him, heart pounding. Move out. Where would you have me go? He shrugged. Anywhere. A nursing home, maybe. Mom says they're better for people like you. People like me, I repeated, voice shaking with fury. Megan didn't flinch. She sipped her wine and said calmly, "He's just being honest, Frank. We all think it's time." I turned to Robert, desperate for one word, one defense. But he kept his eyes on his plate, shoulders slumped in surrender. It was then Jason leaned in, his young face twisted with something cruel. "You're just a burden, Grandpa. Everyone knows it." The words slammed into me like a bullet. But this time I didn't crumble, because in that moment the cop in me, the fighter in me, awoke. I saw Megan's satisfied smirk. I saw Robert's cowardly silence. I saw Jason's eyes clouded but not beyond saving. And I knew this wasn't just family tension, it was war for my very place in this world. They wanted me gone. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. Still, there's a difference between knowing you're in a fight and realizing just how ruthless your opponents have become. For weeks, I told myself the insults were careless, that Jason was just parroting what he heard, that Robert's silence was weakness, not cruelty. But one night as I walked down the hallway to get a glass of water, I heard words that stripped away every excuse I had left. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes every floorboard groan louder, every breath feel intrusive. I padded past the living room when I caught the faint hum of voices from Jason's room. His door was ajar just a sliver, and the glow of his desk lamp spilled into the hall. At first I thought he was on the phone with a friend. But then I recognized Megan's low, controlled tone. "You need to remember, Jason, your grandfather is not your future. He's your past. And the past holds you back." My blood ran cold. Jason's reply was hesitant, softer than I expected. "But Mom, he's done a lot for us. For me." There it was, the boy I used to know, still flickering like a candle in the dark. But Megan's voice cut through sharp as glass. "He hasn't done enough. All that money he spends on groceries and bills? That's not generosity, Jason. That's control. He wants you to feel like you owe him. Don't you see he's keeping us chained? Chained. The word slashed at me. My pension, my sacrifice, my years of giving turned into shackles in her mouth. Jason murmured something I couldn't catch, but Megan's response was clear. You have to be strong. He's weak now. Old. If you want to build your own life, you can't carry him forever. Sometimes family becomes a burden you have to cut loose. Her voice faltered for a second. She glanced toward the door as if afraid someone might be listening. For a flicker of a moment, her mask slipped. Megan's voice hardened, but beneath it was something else, a trace of desperation. Do you think college is cheap, Jason? Do you think a future just falls into your lap? Robert's salary barely keeps us afloat. And your grandfather's pension? It's the only way I can make sure you get the life I never had. She pressed a hand to Jason's shoulder, her tone softening. He clings to the past, to old stories and medals that don't pay bills. But I see your future, Jason. I won't let anyone, even him, stand in the way of that. Her words almost sounded noble, like a mother's sacrifice. But the chill in her eyes told another story. This wasn't only about Jason's future. It was about control. About power. There it was, the poison in its purest form. And then Jason's voice, uncertain, cracking, with the weight of adolescence, asked the question that broke me. So you want me to tell him to say it to his face? Megan's smile was audible. Yes, he needs to hear it. From you, that way it will finally sink in. I stepped back from the door, my breath shallow, my hands trembling, not from fear, but from fury. It hadn't been Jason's cruelty at all. It had been Megan's script, her manipulation, her venom poured day after day into the ears of a boy who once called me his hero. And Robert, my son, he let it happen. He stood aside and let his wife sharpen our grandson into a weapon against me. I stumbled to the kitchen, gripping the counter as if it could hold me up. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound, steady and indifferent, while my world cracked. Memories of Margaret surged back, her smile, her steady hand, the way she used to say, Frank, promise me you'll protect this family no matter what. I had kept that promise my whole life. But how do you protect a family from itself? The next morning at breakfast, Jason barely looked at me. Megan poured orange juice with a satisfied air as though nothing had happened. Robert buried himself in the newspaper, the coward's shield. I studied Jason, searching for some trace of guilt, some flicker of the boy who once clung to my arm. But all I saw was confusion, shame, and underneath it, the echo of Megan's words. Pass the salt, Grandpa, he said flatly. Just 3 words, ordinary, but they cut deep. Not because of what he said, but because of how he said it. Detached, cold, as if I were a stranger. That day, I drove out to the old cemetery where Margaret rested. The autumn leaves crunched under my boots as I stood by her grave, hands shoved into my jacket pockets. They're turning him against me, Maggie, I whispered. They're trying to erase me. Our grandson, your pride and joy. He's slipping away, and I don't know how to stop it. The wind stirred, carrying the faint scent of burning wood from a nearby farmhouse. I closed my eyes, let the ache roll through me, then clenched my jaw. I won't let them win. Not while I'm still breathing. That night, the breaking point came. I'd gone to bed early, but muffled laughter in the living room woke me. Curious, I walked quietly down the hall. There they were, Megan, Robert, and Jason sitting together, whispering. Papers were spread across the coffee table, bank statements, property deeds, my pension details. Jason's voice drifted to me. So if Grandpa moves out, do we get this money? Megan's hand stroked his shoulder. Yes, sweetheart. And think of all the things we could do. College vacation's a real future. Robert sat silent, staring into his lap. Something inside me snapped. I stepped into the doorway, my voice low but steady. That money isn't yours. It's mine, earned with sweat, blood, and years you'll never understand. They all froze. Jason's eyes widened, guilt flashing across his face. Megan's smile vanished, replaced by a mask of irritation. Robert? Robert still said nothing. I shook my head, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. You want me gone? Fine. But don't think for a second you'll strip me of my dignity. Not now. Not ever. The room was silent, the kind of silence that follows a gunshot. That night, as I walked past the garage, I found Robert sitting alone on the steps, a half-empty bottle of beer dangling from his hand. His shoulders slumped, his eyes hollow. "Dad," he muttered when he saw me, his voice thick. "I didn't mean for it to get this far. Megan." She pushes and I just shut down. He stared into the dark, the weight of his own cowardice heavy on him. "I know I should have defended you. I know." I wanted to tell him it wasn't too late. But the words caught in my throat, because the truth was, it already felt too late. From the corner of my eye, I thought I saw a shadow at the upstairs window, Jason standing there watching us in silence. His face was pale, unreadable, but for a fleeting second I swore I saw confusion flicker in his eyes. Then the curtain fell shut. I retreated to my room, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. My heart pounded, my breath ragged, but my resolve hardened. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about truth. About showing Jason the kind of man his grandfather really was, not the burden Megan painted me to be, but the protector, the provider, the fighter who had never given up. I whispered into the darkness, as if Margaret herself could hear me. They think I'm finished, but I'm not. I've still got fight left. And for the first time in weeks, a strange calm settled over me, because now the line had been crossed. The game had changed, and I was ready to fight back. That old fire, the one that had carried me through years in uniform, burned steady in my chest again. I might have been 66, retired, gray-haired, and slower on my feet, but my instincts hadn't gone anywhere. You don't spend decades as a cop without learning how to gather evidence, how to read people, how to build a case. And if Megan thought she could destroy me with whispers and manipulation, she was about to learn the same lesson every criminal I ever arrested had learned: the truth has teeth. The very next morning I started small. I bought a small pocket recorder from the hardware store, the kind roofers use to leave voice memos. Cheap, simple, but effective. I slipped it into the inside pocket of my flannel shirt and carried it everywhere. That afternoon, Megan cornered me in the kitchen, her tone sharp. "Frank, it would really be better if you gave us control of your accounts. It's too much for you at your age." I didn't answer. Just nodded, let her ramble, and let the recorder do its work. Later in my room, I played it back. Clear as day, her voice dripped with contempt. Proof. One stone on the pile I was building. Next came the paperwork. I dug out the lockbox I kept under my bed, a relic from my days on the force. Inside were decades of documents, bank statements, receipts, the deed to the house I still partly owned. I spread them across my desk, each one a shield against the lies Megan had been weaving. Every check I had written for Jason's schooling, every utility bill I had covered, every grocery list I had paid for. I highlighted them, marked dates, organized folders like case files. Old habits die hard. By the time I was done, my bedroom looked less like a grandfather's retreat and more like a detective's war room. But I knew paperwork alone wasn't enough. So I started listening, really listening. Jason's room was next to mine, and teenagers aren't exactly discreet. I'd hear him talking late at night, sometimes to Megan, sometimes to friends online. One evening I caught him muttering, "Grandpa's just in the way. Mom says he's holding us back." My chest tightened, but I kept my pen steady as I jotted it down in my notebook. Word for word. Another night I overheard Megan on the phone. "Once he's out, the pension's ours. Robert won't stand in the way. He never does." I clenched my fists, the old urge to storm in and confront her flaring. But no, not yet. You don't arrest a suspect on suspicion, you wait until the evidence is airtight. So I waited. I wasn't alone, though. I reached out quietly to an old friend from the force, Detective Alan Hayes, retired 5 years before me. We met at a diner on the edge of town, the same one where we used to grab coffee after long shifts. He looked older, grayer, but his handshake was still firm. "Frank," he said, sliding into the booth, "you sound like a man in trouble." I told him everything. Not just the words, but the tone, the silence, the way my own son's shoulders slumped whenever Megan opened her mouth. Alan listened, his jaw tight, his eyes hard. "You've got a manipulation case on your hands," he said finally. Classic control tactic. Isolate the target, poison the well-cut-off allies. She's good at it, but she's sloppy. People like her always are. "Get the evidence, Frank. Make it undeniable." He leaned in, voice low. "And Frank, don't lose the boy. He's still yours, deep down." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Back home, I doubled my efforts. I kept the recorder running during dinner conversations. Megan's little digs, Robert's weak silences, Jason's rehearsed lines, they all went into my growing archive. When Megan complained that I was too tired to keep up with bills, I slid the receipt for the last month's utilities across the table. Paid in full. Her eyes flickered. I made sure the recorder caught it all. I even kept a camera on my phone, pretending to scroll while secretly capturing her smirks, her sneers, her gestures of control. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. But evidence was only half the plan. The other half was strategy. Late at night, I sat at my desk, staring at the folders stacked neatly, the tapes labeled in my shaky handwriting. I thought about when, where, and how to reveal it all. It had to be public. Quiet confrontations hadn't worked. Megan thrived in the shadows and whispers. If I wanted Jason to see the truth, if I wanted Robert to face what he had allowed, it needed to happen in the open. A family gathering, a dinner, a moment when masks would crack under the weight of daylight. I circled a date on the calendar, Jason's upcoming school award night. A celebration Megan had been bragging about for weeks. Everyone would be there, neighbors, teachers, family. The perfect stage. The days leading up to it, I kept my head down. Played the role of the tired old man, quiet, harmless, invisible. Megan relaxed, convinced she had me beaten. Jason parroted her lines, less forcefully, almost mechanically, as though some part of him still questioned. But beneath that calm surface, I sharpened every tool, every piece of evidence, every ounce of resolve. I was ready. The night before the event, I sat on the porch with a mug of black coffee, staring out at the dark street. My hands trembled, not from age, but from anticipation. "Margaret," I whispered into the night, "tomorrow they'll see. Jason will see. I'll make sure of it." A breeze rustled the trees, and for a moment I felt her presence steadying me. I clenched my jaw, sipped the bitter coffee, and let the fire settle deep inside. I wasn't a burden. I was a man with the truth on his side. And tomorrow the truth would roar. The day of Jason's school award night arrived crisp and cool, the kind of autumn evening when the air smelled faintly of wood smoke and damp leaves. Parents hurried through the parking lot, arms full of flowers and cameras, their voices bright with pride. I walked slowly behind my family, my suit pressed, my shoes polished, the recorder tucked safely in my pocket, and the folders of evidence in my worn leather briefcase. My heart pounded, not with nerves, but with certainty. Decades of policing had taught me when the time is right, you strike hard, you strike clean, and you leave no doubt. Inside the auditorium, the lights were warm, the banners bright with Jason's name, Academic Achievement Award. His teachers smiled as he passed, neighbors clapped him on the back. Megan glowed with self-satisfaction, Robert shuffled dutifully at her side, and Jason, my grandson, looked almost happy. For a moment I glimpsed the boy I used to know before the poison took root. But I also saw the shadow of Megan in his posture, the stiffness in his smile. I took my seat near the aisle, my briefcase resting against my leg. The ceremony moved along, speeches from teachers, polite applause from the crowd. When Jason's name was called, he walked across the stage and his pressed shirt shoulders squared. Megan snapped photo after photo, beaming. When he returned to his seat, she leaned in close, whispering something I couldn't hear. Jason's smile faltered. I knew the moment was now. I rose slowly, my knees creaking, and stepped into the aisle. Conversations dimmed, eyes turned toward me. It wasn't my badge on my chest this time. It was the truth in my hands. "Excuse me?" I said, my voice steady, carrying across the room. "Before we go any further tonight, I need to say something." Megan stiffened. Robert's eyes widened. Jason froze. I placed the briefcase on the front table, clicked it open, and pulled out a stack of papers bound with clips, receipts, bank statements, proof of every sacrifice I had made. For years, I've been told I'm a burden, that I don't belong, that I'm nothing but dead weight on this family. But here, I held the stack high, is the truth. My hands trembled as I fumbled with the folders. A few pages slipped fluttering to the floor. Jason bent down instinctively to pick them up, our eyes locking for a heartbeat before he handed them back. The microphone squealed with feedback and I cleared my throat, steadying myself. I laid out the bills I'd paid, the tuition checks, the groceries, the car repairs. Each document was a nail in the coffin of Megan's lies. This is every dollar I gave, every bill I covered, every time I chose beans and rice so my grandson could have steak and milk. Murmurs rippled through the audience, teachers leaned forward, parents exchanged glances. Megan's face flushed. She hissed, "Sit down, Frank. You're embarrassing yourself." But I didn't sit. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the recorder, and pressed play. Her voice filled the room, sharp and unmistakable. "Your grandfather is not your future. He's your past. If you want a real life, Jason, you have to cut him loose." Gasps erupted from the crowd. Jason's face drained of color. The recording continued. Promises of money, vacations, freedom, if only I were gone. I clicked it off and let the silence hang heavy. "This," I said, eyes sweeping the room, "is what I've lived with. Lies. Manipulation. Poison poured into the ears of a boy who once called me his hero." Jason's hands trembled. His eyes darted between his mother and me, his lips parting like he wanted to speak, but couldn't. "Jason," I said softly, my voice breaking, "I don't blame you. I know those words you said weren't yours. They were hers. But the truth is yours to see now." His chest heaved, his fists clenched. Then with a sudden cry, he leapt to his feet. "Mom!" "Is it true?" His voice cracked, raw and desperate. "Did you really say that?" Megan's smile returned, brittle and tight. "Sweetheart, don't listen to him. He's twisting everything. He's old, confused." "Answer me!" Jason's shout cut her off. The room fell silent. Megan stammered, eyes darting, searching for Robert. But he stared at the floor, shoulders hunched in shame. For the first time, he didn't protect her. Jason's eyes brimmed with tears. "You told me he was holding us back. You told me he didn't care." But all this, he gestured to the papers, the recorder. He was taking care of us the whole time. His voice broke. "You lied to me. You made me hurt him." The boy's sob echoed through the auditorium, raw and devastating. I stepped forward and rested a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't hurt me, Jason. Not really. What hurt was thinking I'd lost you. But now you see the truth, and that's all I ever wanted." He collapsed into my arms, clinging tight, his tears wetting my jacket. The same boy who once wore a crooked toy badge was back, if only for this moment. The crowd murmured, some sympathetic, some judgmental. But none could deny what they had witnessed. Megan's mask cracked, her face twisted with fury, her voice shrill. "You think this changes anything? You're still old Frank. You're still useless." But her words rang hollow, now bouncing off walls that no longer held her power. Because the truth had roared, and my grandson had heard it. The auditorium was still hushed, the air thick with the weight of everything exposed. Jason clung to me, his shoulders shaking, while Megan's sharp breaths cut through the silence like knives. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I didn't feel erased. I felt seen. Megan tried to recover her words, tumbling out in frantic bursts. "He's manipulating you, Jason. Can't you see he staged all this to turn you against me?" But no one bought it. The recording had been too clear, the documents too undeniable. Teachers whispered in the back row, parents exchanged glances of disapproval. Even the principal standing stiffly at the podium avoided Megan's gaze. Robert finally lifted his head, his face pale, his voice breaking loud enough for everyone to hear. "Dad, I failed you. I let her poison this house while I stayed silent. You carried us, and I called it a burden. I was wrong. I'm sorry." The words were small, almost broken, but they cracked the dam. Robert turned toward Jason, his voice trembling. "Your grandfather was never a burden. He carried us. And I let her convince me to stay silent." Megan spun on him, fury blazing. "Robert, don't you dare!" But Jason shouted over her, his young voice fierce. "Stop lying, Mom. I know the truth now. I don't want your lies anymore." Her face twisted, but she had no audience left. Not in that room. Later that night, back at the house, the silence was suffocating. Megan stormed into the bedroom, slamming the door. Robert sat in the living room, staring at his hands. Jason hovered near me, uncertain, guilty, but closer than he had been in months. I packed my briefcase, slowly sliding the documents back into their folders. Not because I needed to keep them, but because I was done using them as armor. The truth had already been spoken. "Grandpa," Jason whispered, "please don't leave." I rested a hand on his shoulder. "I won't disappear, kiddo, but I can't stay here anymore. Not like this. This house isn't a home for me now." His eyes brimmed with tears. "Can I still come see you?" "Always," I said, my throat tight. "My door will always be open. And someday when you're older, you'll understand why I had to walk away tonight." The next morning, I loaded a few boxes into my old Ford pickup. Clothes photographs, Margaret's quilt folded neatly on the seat beside me. Jason stood in the driveway, arms wrapped around himself against the chill. "I'll visit every week," he promised, "even if Mom says no." I smiled, ruffling his hair one last time. "You don't need to promise, son. Just remember who you are, and remember what we were, what we are. That's enough." Robert approached, shame weighing on his steps. "Dad, if you go, I won't stop you. But I want you to know I'll make things right. Somehow." I didn't answer right away, just looked at him, my only child, the boy I'd raised, the man who had let silence become betrayal. Then I nodded. "Make things right with your son. That's where it starts." I drove away that morning with the sun rising in the rearview mirror. The road stretched long and quiet, autumn fields glowing gold on either side. For the first time in years, I felt light. Not because I had won some war, but because I had chosen freedom over chains. At a small house on the edge of town, a place a fellow retired officer had offered me, I unpacked my boxes. The rooms were smaller, the furniture older, but the silence was peaceful, not poisonous. That evening, I hung Margaret's photo on the mantel. Her smile seemed to approve, as if to say, "You did what you had to do, Frank." I sat with a cup of coffee, the quilt around my shoulders, and whispered into the stillness. A man's worth isn't measured by what others call him. It's measured by the truth he stands on. And the truth is, I was never a burden. Weeks later, Jason came to visit. He rode his bike down the gravel path, breathless, his cheeks red from the cold. "Grandpa," he shouted, dropping the bike and running into my arms. For the first time in a long while, I felt hope. He was young, yes, but he was learning to see past lies, to seek the truth for himself. And maybe, just maybe, he'd grow into a man who valued family, not for what it could give him, but for what it meant. The world would keep calling me old, tired, done. Megan would keep whispering her poison. Robert might keep fighting his own weakness. But Jason knew he had heard the truth roar. And once you hear the truth, you can't unhear it. Weeks later, Jason still came every Saturday, football jacket slung over his shoulder. We'd sit on the porch, watching the sun dip over the fields. but I couldn't miss the shadows under his eyes when he talked about home. Megan wasn't done fighting. If you've ever carried the weight of family betrayal, or if you've seen how truth can turn revenge into justice, share your story in the comments below. Don't forget to follow this channel and hit like because there are more karma stories coming that you won't want to miss.